Hey, folks, it's time for the quote of the day. And I'm not going to lie about this one. I don't really know a whole lot about the life of the man that I'm quoting today. I do know his work. I know his work, but I don't know much about his life. And so I can't really speak to that too much. I do know one particular part of it. Today, we're going to be quoting Paul Gauguin, the artist. Some of you may immediately recognize when I say Gauguin what that means, like the impressionistic type, post-impressionistic, I should say, type of art that he did, the way that he used colors to convey, well, everything. Just absolutely fantastic to look at. Some people consider it to be kind of mundane. Some people consider it to be a little off-putting, but I've always looked at it and thought, well, this is something that, like, his art is something where you look at it and it seems simple enough that anybody could do it, but then you recognize the fact that you absolutely could not, right? Like it's that kind of thing. It's the beauty in the simplicity and the understanding that he's just taking a layer of whatever it may be he's painting, a layer of reality, and impressing just a different way of seeing it. And therefore, because of his perspective, it is almost impossible to emulate and not something that everybody can do. Absolutely breathtaking artist, obviously. Like I said, I don't really know much about his life. What I do know is this, and this is something that I think everybody should take to heart. Um, Everybody should know this about an artist, a literal legendary artist, such as Gauguin, is that he didn't actually start his, like, truly start the artistic journey that people see in their head as artists having, where they're just, struggling artists moving around trying to sell their art. He didn't start that until he was 40. He had done the stuff he was supposed to do. He had a family. He had kids. He was a stockbroker. He was just dabbling on the side, just playing around with the idea of painting. He was avid about collecting it, and learning about it, and he loved art, but he wasn't doing it as much himself, at least seriously. And then around the age of 40, he decided, you know what, I'm gonna take my shot, right? Like, and I can't tell you how inspirational that is, and the importance of that lesson. I know that many people out there feel like they're too old, right? They're too old, as Yoda says, too old to begin the training, right? Like, it is that people feel that way about themselves, and people like Gauguin literally just said, no, fuck that. I'm me. I'm gonna do me. One of the things about him that we know through history is that he tended to rub people the wrong way because of his confidence, because he was a little beyond confident. He wasn't like cocky necessarily. He just truly believed that he was seeing things in a certain way, that he was experiencing life in a certain way. And this way of seeing the world really came to a head with his well, short-term friend, Vincent van Gogh. A lot of people don't know this history, so I'm going to give it to you as briefly as I can. Van Gogh really did want to try to build like an artists' commune, and he had worked for it for like 2 years, trying to, like, with correspondence, trying to get people to come and stay with him. He had this beautiful house, and he wanted people to come and stay in this, and they would all get together, and it was something that he dreamed of because, well, he was lonely. That's not I'm not exaggerating that. He was lonely, and he didn't feel like he could really relate to anybody, but he felt like he could relate to other artists. So he reaches out to all these different painters and all these different artists, and they're all like, I'm good, thanks. No, I'm good. Because he had a little bit of a reputation. People knew that Van Gogh was a little weird. But Gauguin, who was just basically starting out his journey at that point in time, a little bit older, obviously, is like, well, yeah, I'll go. And so he goes, and it's like a legendary point in time, rightfully so, because he goes and he stays with Van Gogh. Now he does this because Van Gogh's brother is an art dealer, and he believes that if he's there and he's working with Theo Van Gogh, Vincent Van Gogh's brother, that he has an opportunity, right? Like, it's not so much that he loves Van Gogh; he doesn't really like him that much. They're not really the best of friends, even though you wouldn't have been able to, like, Van Gogh wouldn't have told you that. It was Gauguin that believed that, right? He was there for business. So they stayed together in this little chateau for about I think it was like 8 or 9 weeks, and it just didn't work out. And Gauguin was like, "We do not. We're fighting all the time. We can't stay together. This is not going to work." And it's because they both were very much this kind of like the artist, right? Like the artist, the way that you imagine a lot of artists to be, where they have this sensibility, they have this way of seeing the world, and nothing can really infringe on that, because if it does, then it ruins their ability to create. And so they were just bumping heads, and Van Gogh was trying to say, paint this, paint this, paint this, because he was excited. He was really excited about having his friend there, somebody he thought was his friend. And it got to the point where they had a fight at, I don't know, they were at a bar or something like that. They had a fight, and supposedly Van Gogh throws a drink in Gauguin's face, and Gauguin gets up, and they end up like really going at each other, not like physically, but and then Gauguin walks out, and that's the very famous night with Van Gogh where he goes and cuts his own ear off. And uh, this is done because he's lonely. He's completely and totally bereft. He doesn't he's obviously in a state of depression, and a state of, a somewhat manic depression, I assume, and makes that now legendary action. And there's lots of reasons behind it. There's lots of possibilities. I mean, I wasn't there, but there are a lot of things. But the way that ends is the police, having heard of this, man disfiguring himself. They don't know if he's alive or dead at the time, because he hadn't reappeared after cutting his ear off. So they go to his house, and they are going to go arrest Paul Gauguin, because they believe that he has done something to Van Gogh. And when Van Gogh shows up, minus an ear, Gauguin gets let go, and it's not that big a deal, and he never sees Van Gogh again. He just goes away and goes on to, have the career that he did, and which was not always a great career. He didn't make a ton of money, and he really wasn't appreciated in his time, really, at all. But his, he was always struggling, and there are, controversies around him. There's a feeling that he kind of took advantage of the Tahitian culture in some of his paintings, and the people. There's that feeling as kind of a Frenchman that came in and was like, I'm kind of the boss. So there's a lot of that kind of colonial colonizer kind of sense that you get from him. But other than that, he was just a guy that, struggled to make his dream come true, tried as hard as he could to live his dream after the regiment of regular life failed him. All the things you were supposed to do didn't reach him, and internally he never was able to express himself until he started to create his art. And I think that is a very, very valuable lesson for any of you out there that have abilities or skills like that. Now, when you do that, I want you to remember this quote, because I think that it's very, very important in today's world. Paul Gauguin once said, "Follow the masters. But why should one follow them? The only reason they are masters is that they didn't follow anyone." I'll read that again. Follow the masters. But why should one follow them? The only reason they are masters is that they didn't follow anyone. This is a very, very beautiful and important thing to understand. A lot of times we will throw in with whatever group or whatever understanding. We'll read the books, right? We'll get an understanding of where we want to go, but a lot of it is through the prism of someone else's vision. And if there's anybody that can tell you about finding your own vision, it's Paul Gauguin, and just doing your thing. Because the reality is that you can take inspiration from those people that came before you, but everything that you do that emulates them, that follows them, takes a little bit off of your greatness. You don't get to greatness by following. You get it by being you, by expressing yourself, not by expressing someone else's opinions or thoughts or art through you. Express yourself. Don't express them. Happy birthday to Paul Gauguin, and to the rest of you. Take care of yourself. Take care of others. I'll talk to you soon.